Hey everyone, my name is Will Rutt. I'm the lead pastor here at Sandhurst. At Sandhurst, we want to love and obey God by the power of His Spirit for the praise of His glory, and we want to help others do the same. So as you listen to this message, I hope that you will listen with a readiness to respond. That we wouldn't just listen as hearers, but we would listen as doers. That we wouldn't just read and go, that we would read and go, Lord, let's go, help me. Also, if you call Sandhurst home, I want to re-exhort you not to just be a consumer, but to be a contributor as part of a radically unified need-meeting community. So let's engage the mission of God by the power of His Spirit for the praise of His glory. Let's do it.
Marriage. It's good to be with you this morning. My name is Will, and I'm very excited about Power Up Club. We want to saturate our city with the message and presence of Jesus always. And this week, we're doing it uniquely. Also, I want to remind you that during Power Up Clubs, this whole week, we're going to be inviting the community to come visit us at church a week from today. And really trying to invite people who don't currently have a church home, which means that next week there's going to be more people here than usual, probably people who haven't been to church in a while, and probably people who have preconceived ideas of what church is like. And I want to just remind us that as we are inviting them to church, that church is not a place, church is not a performance, church is a people. And so what we're inviting our community to come to is not a thing, but a gathering of people. And my hope is that as we're putting Christ on display in the front yards of Florence, that people would be able to come here and experience Christ on display in the seats at Sandhurst. All right, we have a lunch next week at the end of the service. So please plan to stick around for that. And the point of the lunch, all right, this is important. The point of the lunch is that we as saints at Sandhurst would look around at lunch and go, okay, I want to be on mission here. I'm going to look for an unfamiliar face, and I'm going to engage. You know what that's going to take for us, though? It's going to take two things. It's going to take humility, and it's going to take initiative. All right, it's going to take humility because probably you're going to think, all right, are they a visitor, or have they been here for 10 years? You know, hey, I'm Will. Is this your first time here? No. Oh, stupid. Okay, so we're just going to have to get over ourselves, be gracious to somebody who thinks you're a visitor when, in fact, you're not, and take initiative. This is who we're going to be as a church, right? And it's actually, just a reminder, this is why we have the greeting time. It's not just so that we can say, hey, to the people next to us that we've been talking to for the last 15 minutes. And so we can look around and find an unfamiliar face that we can go from stranger to acquaintance. And then in other environments, from acquaintance to friend, and then from friend to family, in a functional sort of way, because as saints, we are family. All right, so speaking of family, also, happy Father's Day. Can we just give it up for the dads? Dads, I want to just remind you that the greatest gift that you can give your kids is yourself. So you got some girls, do some tea parties. Got some boys, do whatever. Do the football, play video games. The greatest gift you can give your kid is yourself. All right? So we just read in Ephesians 5, he's talking about marriage. All right? And I don't know what comes to your mind when you think about marriage, and I also don't know what comes to your mind when you think about what we just read in this text, all right? Culturally speaking, marriage is sort of like, it's this glorious and passionate culmination to love and romance that then kills the love and romance. You know what I'm talking about? It's like if you watch a movie, it's like, man, everything is great. Man, wow, until the wedding. And then after that, it's like, oh, now everything, blah, blah, blah. You used to want to be with your wife, now you gotta be with your wife, you know? those sorts of things. Marriage kills everything, so the culture says. And I think Ephesians 5 is a real gift to us. And I think if we will, as a church, in all things, take God's word as something to place ourselves under, we will find freedom and joy in the midst of real challenge and hardship in life. So he's talking about marriage, husbands and wives. What is marriage? Don't answer out loud. Just think to yourself, what is marriage? It's actually a pretty good question to think about. But the essence of marriage, biblically, is the union of one man and one woman for life. That's the essence of marriage. It's a union. One man, one woman for life. All right? The reality is the for life part is becoming less and less of a cultural value here. It's like one man, it's the union of one man, one woman, as long as we're kind of in love or as long as things are still going okay. But the for life part is suffering. Last I checked on the CDC is 43% of first marriages end in divorce. That's really high. And nobody gets married thinking, we're probably going to get divorced. Nobody thinks that. Nobody goes into it thinking, or probably fully aware of all the challenges that are going to come. And so it's good. It's good for us to look at Ephesians 5 and say, God, you made marriage up. It didn't take long in the biblical story for God to bring marriage in. He's going to talk about that in Ephesians 5. It's his gift. It's his idea. So let's lean in. If you're married, this is good for us. If you're not married, this is good for you too, because you're connected to somebody who's married. And there's going to be opportunity to speak into it. Perhaps you want to be married, and this is good for us to learn. It's good to learn to swim before you jump into the deep end. All right? So that we all have a stake in hearing what God has to say about his gift of marriage to us. Are we ready? Let's see what he has to say for our joy. To the extent that that Paul didn't just pick up in chapter 5, verse 22, he's written a bunch of stuff beforehand. It is really good for us to remember what he has said so far so that it isn't isolated, all right? He's talked about how God has made a way for Kal-Sod. Okay, that is an acronym for children of wrath, sons of disobedience. How Kal-Sod to be made into carfish. And that is an acronym from Ephesians 1 that says chosen, adopted, redeemed, forgiven, informed, sealed, heirs. This is who we are in Christ. That's the first 3 chapters. And then beginning in chapter 4, he takes a turn from the theology of it to how to walk it out. And he says, walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you've been called. And then, as he talks about how to walk, he transitions to this idea that we looked at last week. And I have it. He says, don't get drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. I had a couple people say, I was sure you were going to give us all Dr. Peppers last week. Sorry, no Dr. Peppers. But as you're going to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you've been called, be filled with the Spirit, such the Holy Spirit animates every part of your life, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you talk, the attitude that you have. And watch what he's going to do here, okay? He's going to apply a Spirit-filled life to marriage, to wives in verse 22, to husbands in verse 25, to go to chapter 6, verse 1. He's going to say, here's how to walk worthy as a Spirit-filled what? Child, and as a dad or as a parent in verse 4. How to walk worthy as a Spirit-filled, verse 5, slave. How to walk worthy as a Spirit-filled, verse 9 of chapter 6, master. He's going to talk about, hey, if the Holy Spirit is going to fill you, speaking together in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in our heart. Hey, let's be filled. Be filled with the Spirit. And this morning, walking worthy as Spirit-filled wives and husbands. All right, let's dig in. We're just going to look at what he says, and I hope we see both what really what marriage is and what marriage does. Verse 22, wives, be subject to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ also is the head of the church, he himself being the Savior of the body. But as the church is subject to Christ, so also the wives ought to be to their husbands in everything. Now, there are some challenges here, sort of, especially emotionally, when we read this sort of thing, like, well, what does he say? What's the wife's role? To be subject, to submit. All right, we'll come back to that. The wife's role is to submit, is loving submission. Now, what that means, and part of the reason I say loving submission, is what the word indicates there is not a forced submission by some sort of external force or person, but a voluntary placing under. That's what submit means. Voluntarily place yourself under. Submit. That's the wife's role. Be subject to your husbands as to the Lord in everything. And the everything obviously, hopefully should go without saying, but obviously, so long as that everything is not in disobedience to God, okay? We don't submit to any person in disobedience to God. That's the wife's role. What's the husband's role? Verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and blameless. So, husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ also does for the church. So what's the husband's role? What's the husband's role? All right, yeah, to love. And to love how? Well, love as Christ loved the church. He talked about this a couple weeks ago, and using the same phrase of how Jesus loved, giving himself up for her. Like giving his life for her. So how to love? Love sacrificially. Love to the point of death. And I really, not going to talk about it yet. I just want to get to what's the wife's role? Loving submission. What's the husband's role? Sacrificial love. All right? Having talked about the roles, that's what the role is, but there's something that the role does. And I want us to see it. All right? I'm going to read through it again, but I'm totally okay with just reading this over and over again because it matters, all right? And it's for our joy, and it's for our good. So back to verse 22. We talked about what the role is for the wife. Now we're going to look at what does the role do, all right? Verse 22, wives, be subject to your own husbands, as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ also is the head of the church, he himself being the Savior of the body. But as the church is subject to Christ, so also the wives ought to be to their husbands in everything. So the role is sacrificial love, but that's what the role is. Loving submission. What does the role do? Well, the role pictures the church's loving submission to Jesus. All right, in that way, she's kind of, so I'm going to go back a few slides to this. Is our 11th anniversary was yesterday. And that's me in the picture, right? Yes? Yeah, this is me. That's a picture of me. This is me, that's a picture of me. What Paul is going in the church is there's a role that the wife has called loving submission, and what that is a picture of something else. And what's it a picture of? It's a picture of the church's loving submission to Jesus. That's what the role does. It creates a picture, a sort of a live action picture of how the church submits to Jesus. Now, what does the husband's role do? We're not going to read it again because we're going to read it again later. What's the husband's role do? It pictures Jesus' sacrificial love for his church. This is really important for us to get in regard to the essence of marriage and what is marriage. What is marriage? Well, it's a union of one man, one woman for life. Can you look at me? Marriage is a picture of what? The gospel. That God has given marriage to be a live action picture to the world that tells the truth about the gospel. That in some ways almost role plays the gospel and the church's loving submission to Jesus and Jesus' sacrificial love on behalf of the church. Are you following that so far? Okay. It's for this reason that he goes into, pick up with me in verse 31. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. There it is. It's a union. In essence, marriage is a union. The two become one flesh. This mystery is great, but I'm speaking with reference to Christ and the church because it's a picture. Marriage is a picture of the gospel. Nevertheless, each individual among you also is to love his own wife even as himself. And the wife must see to it that she respects her husband. So he goes back to the beginning for sort of what marriage is. Marriage is a picture. It's a picture of love and oneness. And quick marriage thing real fast, but we're gonna get into the weeds of just real life in a second. But we got to start here. What does it say, and what does it mean? A man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined, where the two become one. Marriage is a oneness where we are leaving singleness behind. And that is like foundational to marriage. And like especially the men, I think, tend to want to get married. We want to get married, and we want to have a wife, and we want to have a wife who functions as a roommate and a toy. And that's not love and oneness. It's not love and oneness. Marriage is leaving singleness behind, where mine and yours becomes ours, our time, our vacation days, our finances. Marriage is leaving singleness behind and becoming one, and he takes it back to creation, as Jesus always does. And when he wants to understand marriage, he goes back to the beginning. This is how it's supposed to be. All right, so oneness means leaving singleness behind. I want to flesh this out into real life, but I want to do it with a degree of tenderness to the reality that many of us have perhaps seen this text abused such that the husband, and perhaps even churches in the past, well, certainly some churches in the past have used this as a club to the wife that beats her into submission. And I want to approach it with the tenderness that might be some of what you've experienced or what you are experiencing or what you've seen. But I also want to be able to see the beauty that is Ephesians 5. And I want to say to us a reminder that we tend to think a couple things. We tend to think about but what about, And whatever but what about you might have is probably a really good question. And that's one of the reasons that we have elders and our wives in the Connect Corner to be able to talk about the but what abouts. Or I'm always up here, the but what abouts. Those are important, all right? And we can't go into every single one here. But also with this, husbands, your role is what? To make sure that she lovingly submits. No. Seriously. And I want to say that with a degree of emphatic seriousness. No. Your role is not to make sure that she submits. What is your role? Sacrificial love. The way that Christ loves the church to the point of death. Now, if you're reading NIV, it says later the words that he uses, feeds and cares for her. I don't love that word choice. NAS says nourishes and cherishes her. All right, feed and care for is what you do for a hamster, okay? Nourish and cherish is a different word. And I'm not just like picking and choosing the words that I like more. The word cherish that he uses is the same word that he uses in 1 Thessalonians 2 when he says, having so fun, I can't remember, I can't put in my head the part right before. But when he's talking about as a nursing mom tenderly cares for her own infant, for her own child, that's the word cherish, okay? So that's not hamster stuff. This is husbands, sacrificially love your wife. How? In the same way that a nursing mom would tenderly care for her infant, that's how you do it. That's how Jesus did it. That's how you do it for your wife. Sacrificial love, nourishing her, cherishing her. If you're going to go into 1 Peter 3, he's going to give two other words that I think are really, really important. Understanding her and honoring her. This is so important for us. Husband, it is not on you to say, submit. Husband, it is on you to sacrificially love her, nourishing her, cherishing her, understanding her. You don't have to understand women. You have to understand your woman. I'm serious. Understanding her, honoring her. That's your role. Wives, your role. To lovingly submit, to place yourself under. Because your marriage isn't just about getting the best Instagram pictures and wow, look at that wedding. Your marriage is about a different kind of picture. It's picturing the gospel. So, can we get into the weeds a little bit? Can we try to flesh this out in a way that will lead to joy and freedom in our marriages? Can we flesh it out? Okay. We'll go hypothetical husband Billy on this side, and Sally is over here. All right? Billy wants a new TV. 70-inch. It's a good one. All right? Big. It's nice. He wants a new TV. Wife, Sally, thinks that is financially irresponsible for them. That is not a good purchase for their family. So what do they do? All right. So, I want to go through a couple of these, and the goal is not to land you on a decision. The goal is to help think biblically about our role in the context of our marriage. Billy wants a 70-inch TV. Sally thinks that's irresponsible. What are their roles? What is Billy's role? Sacrificially love her, nourish her, cherish her, understand her. Now, the last two, this is 1 Peter 3, okay? Understand her, honor her. What is Sally's role? Loving submission, and at the end of the chapter, and the wife must see to it that she respects her husband. Okay, so and did I write that up there? I didn't. Loving submission and respect. Here's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like a conversation. Okay? And I'm not going to try to spell out what the conversation needs to look like, but I do want to reinforce where the conversation needs to be coming from. The husband, as he's talking about this 70-inch screen TV, is thinking, what can I do that would love her? How can I have this conversation in a way that is loving to her, in a way that is nourishing to her, cherishing to her, understanding her, and honoring her? How can I have that conversation with her? Okay? That's how he's coming to this conversation, because there needs to be a conversation. How does Sally come to it? Sally comes to it prepared to give him the respect of honest thoughts. Respectfully given. Honest thoughts. It's not respectful, wives, to your husbands to just kind of say something less than what you mean. Just so, because you want to avoid conflict. That's not helpful. That's not good. That's not respectful. Okay? The wife wants to have the conversation, ultimately saying, I want to respect you with my honesty, and I want to communicate my honesty with respect, and love isn't just a husband thing, just like submission isn't just a wife thing, because verse 21, what does verse 21 say? Submit to one another in fear of Christ. So, the husband is thinking, how can I have this conversation in a way that is loving to her, nourishing to her, cherishing to her, understanding her, honoring her? And the wife is coming at the conversation saying, I love you too, and I respect you, and I want to respect you with my honesty. And then we come to an agreement together. But then the question is, well, what if there's no agreement? What if both people are kind of digging their heels in the sand? Then what? What if it feels like there's an impasse? Don't answer out loud, but feel the tension. What if there's an impasse? What do we do? Call a lawyer. Yeah. I know that was a joke, but don't. I know that was a joke. Here. Ultimately, where do we go? Do we get the TV or do we not? I want to speak to the husbands here. I do think that ultimately the husband is the head. He leads. Husbands, can I just give this super, hopefully clear word of caution and encouragement? That you would only ask her to lead you, or ask her to follow you, if you really believe that what you are doing is for her true good. If you believe that what you are asking of her, and this standstill, what your side of it is really seeking her true good, then wives, you submit. You place yourself under. And I hope you've married someone who you can trust that that's for your true good. Husbands, if you're digging your heels in and it's not because you're seeking her true good, which is what love does, if it's because you just really want it, smile and die. I'm serious. Smile, die like a man, finding joy on the altar because you left singleness behind. And when you left singleness behind, sometimes that means 70-inch TV, and sometimes I joke sometimes with Sweet D about how many deer I would have on my wall right now if I was a single man, because I'd be hunting all the time. but we joke about that. Okay, so does it feel a little messy? I hope it feels a little bit messy, but I hope it feels kind of clear as well in regard to the biblical process of each one of them taking ownership for their role, not requiring the other person to fulfill theirs. Because you can't do that. You can control you. Billy wants a weekend away with the boys. Sally would like a vacation time to be with the family. What is the husband's role? Sacrificially love his wife, nourish her, cherish her, understand her, honor her with the vacation, because the vacation isn't his time, it's their time. They are one. And husband, I don't know the best language to say it, but only stand your ground if you really believe that what you're asking is for her true good. And wives, as hard as it will be, because Sweetie and I, we've had conflicts. Like, we understand what this is like in real life. Wives, you see that your marriage is about something bigger than just happiness. It's a picture of the gospel. Place yourself under. We could keep going through examples, but I hope what you hear is me championing the wives and the husbands and the wives standing before God and standing firm on their role. Do you hear that? Thanks, Wick. Glad you hear that. Let me give a couple sort of comments and then one final exhortation. All right. What submission doesn't mean? Submission of the wife to the husband as the head doesn't mean women submit to men. It means wives to their husbands. Okay. It doesn't mean inferiority of the wife in any way. A wise husband who loves his wife and understands his wife understands she has gifts that you don't have. All right? And those differences that you have that bother you are actually good, even though they're bothersome. And that goes both ways. The differences are good. And submission doesn't mean inferiority. Jesus is not inferior to the Father, but Jesus submits to the Father. That's his role in the Godhead. It also doesn't mean, and I hope this has been clear, it doesn't mean the wife has no voice. Like the wife has to just be like, well, whatever you say. I'm trying to communicate that the way that, I feel good about this. I've communicated one of the ways that the husband loves the wife is understanding her, which is conversational, which means wives, speak honestly. That's helpful. That's good. What if you're married to someone who almost always just chooses themselves? What if your husband frequently chooses his preference over your true good? That's hard. And it is as tenderly and as firmly as I can exhort you, don't throw in the towel on your marriage. Don't throw in the towel. Please seek help for your marriage. There are people here, who have expertise in helping marriages thrive. So seek help for your marriage. And please walk in humility. It's so hard. And I don't want to, it's hard. But when Paul goes from theology to life, what's the first word of exhortation he gives? Walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you've been called, with all humility. So much of this is going to come back to walking in humility. The band can go ahead and come up. As I want to say this with confidence, that joy in your marriage will not be found as you run away from that, but as you walk in it, right here. Joy in your marriage will be found there and then. I think one of the best pieces of marriage advice ever came from the mouth of Mary, Jesus' mom. When Jesus was at a wedding and crisis broke out at the wedding. There's no more wine. And in that wedding, Jesus looks at the servants and she gives the best wedding advice ever. She says to the servants, pointing at Jesus, she says, whatever he says, do it. And this is what he has said for marriage. Whatever he says, do it. Ephesians 5 is what he has said to do. And the crazy thing is that when they do something that didn't make much sense, which was fill up these water pots full of water, that God did what only he could do, and he turned that water into wine such that they go, wow, usually you serve the best wine first, and then you give the cheap stuff later. Once people don't know any different, right? But he says, you've saved the best for now. And I don't want to overly read into this image, but I do think it's true that, and obvious, that it was when the servants did what Jesus said that people were able to taste a sweetness that they would not have otherwise tasted. And I hope you leave personally convicted for your role in marriage, more clear in what marriage is, and that you leave with confidence. This will be to our joy. I was listening to a Q&A that my parents did on marriage, and it was so good. And one of the questions was, what do you wish you would have known about spirit-filled marriage before you were married? And I really liked my mom's answer. She said very, very quickly, she just said that it's possible. I wish I would have known, really for real, that this is possible. To have a marriage like this, where you have a husband, though imperfect, who's going to sacrificially love his wife when it comes to 70-inch TVs or vacation days or whatever else. And for a husband for a wife who really respects her husband to lovingly submit to him and have a marriage that really tells the truth about the gospel. This is spirit-filled marriage. So, I want to close our time by two things. We're going to sing like normal. We're going to pull the song straight from the 2000s, and it's called, forget what it's called. It's about love. Unfailing love? Amazing love, yes. Amazing love. How can it be that you, my king, I know the song, okay. How can it be that you, my king, would die for me? We're going to turn our eyes back to Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Before we do that, I want to remind you of the vows you took. The vows. If you're married, perhaps you'll just reaffirm, no, not perhaps. If you're married, reaffirm these vows in your heart. If you're not married, would you say, God, fill me with your spirit, that when the time comes, this will be true of me. I don't know what the vows exactly were that you gave, but they might have sounded something like this. Husbands, with love, I take you, and you just fill in the blank, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, to love you as Christ loves the church, to nourish you, cherish and care for you as I do my own body, to lead you as Christ leads me, to give honor to you as to a delicate instrument, to share every part of my life with you, as you are now a part of me, to be completely true and faithful to you by God's grace and power for the rest of my life. Husbands, you made some sort of promise like that. God, fill us with your spirit that would be true of us. Wives, you said something like, with love I take you to be my husband in submission to you as we both are to Christ, desiring to follow you in all things with deep respect and honor, reverencing you as my leader and the head of our home, willingly sharing every part of my life, remaining faithful to you with God's help to be at your side, no matter the sacrifice or cost, for the rest of my life. These are the vows, or some sort of version, that we made before God. Let's walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which we've been called, filled with the Spirit, speaking together in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. If our elders can talk or pray for you, please take us up on it. Let's stand and sing together.